Hello, and welcome to Ask the Expert, the show where you can connect directly with experts to get your questions answered. I'm Nancy Tandy. I am the go-to lead for business applications, and I'm excited to be your host today. Today, we are going to be talking about Microsoft certification renewals. I have two great expert panelists. Liberty, you want to start with your introductions?
Sure. I am Liberty Munson. I'm the Director of Psychometrics at Microsoft for our technical certification program. That's really just a fancy way of saying that I am responsible for making sure that any tool or process we use is valid and reliable, so that when someone earns one of our certifications or one of our credentials, it means something.
Great. Thank you. And Sudarshan?
Yeah, hi. My name is Sudarshan Krishnamurthy, and I'm the Director of Product Management for Microsoft Certifications. And in my role, I am responsible for understanding the customer pain points and building an awesome experience for all of you for the Microsoft certification program.
Great, thank you. So today, as I mentioned, we're going to be talking about Microsoft certification renewals. We launched this program last year in March of 2021, and we're here to answer any questions that you may have about the program. So feel free to put your questions in the chat. So let's get started. I think we have a great question for Liberty to get us all kicked off here. Liberty, why did Microsoft introduce the certification renewal process?
At Microsoft, we've been building a portfolio of role-based training and certifications designed to help our learners stay current and be future ready. Unlike the old MCSA, MCSD, and MCSE certifications, Microsoft role-based certifications, which are our associate, expert, and specialty, expire after 1 year. So we introduced the certification renewal process to help our learners renew their role-based certifications and keep them active and up to date on the technology. I do want to note one key caveat here is that our fundamental certifications don't have a renewal process because they don't expire. So this is really about associate, expert, and specialty.
Great, thank you. Sudarshan, let's talk a little bit about what's the value of the certification renewal and how does it benefit you and your organization?
Yeah, great question. Certification renewal benefits the individual and also the organizations that the IT professionals work in. And here is how, right? And this is, again, not my opinion or Microsoft's opinion. This is based on all the research, primary research that we have done with our learners and also the employers. The way it benefits an individual is, as we know, in cloud technologies are constantly evolving. There are new services being added and deprecated into the platforms. And as these technology evolutions happen, it's really important for the IT professional to be up to date and current with all those technology changes that happen, but that are relevant to their job role, right? Depending on whatever the job role that people are in, there will be some technology updates relevant to their job role, and we have to make sure those technology updates are being absorbed by the individual and the IT professional can do their jobs. So from that perspective, it's really important for the individual to be up to date and current with the technology updates and develop this mindset of continuous learning as the technology updates happen. So that's how it's important for the individual. And for the organization that the IT professional is working in, it's also really important because you want the IT professional to be really productive in their jobs, get the latest technology updates, make sure the solutions that they're building are modern, robust, and secure, right? In order to get all the benefits and be more productive at their jobs, it's also important from an employer perspective that people continue to learn and keep their certifications active.
Thanks, Sudarshan. I think that's helpful. I'm going to throw this one back to Liberty. Why do certifications expire after 1 year? And why did you change from a 2-year expiration period to that 1-year expiration period?
So when we launched the new role-based program, we actually launched it with a 2-year expiration period for their certifications. And then in June 2021, newly earned certifications would expire after 1 year. This shift to renewing certifications every year rather than every 2 years really helps to ensure that your certification aligns to evolving job roles and changes in skills needed to be successful that are a result of the rapid pace of change in cloud technologies. Very much why what Sudarshan was talking about, but how this benefits you is because it does keep you up to date, and the technology is changing so fast that a year expiration really makes sense to ensure that you have the right skills and abilities to continue to perform your job effectively and be an efficient and productive member of your workforce.
Right. But as you mentioned before, we should just do a reminder here that the fundamentals does not expire, correct?
Correct. We're talking role-based, specialty, associate, expert.
Perfect. Perfect. Sudarshan, I have a great question for you. Why do I need to renew my certification?
What do I need to do, or why do I need to?
Why do I need to renew my certification?
So, in order to renew your certification, I think the question is, what do I need to do to renew your certification?
Oh,
So,
sorry.
yeah, that's fine. In order to renew your certification, basically, you need to go through an assessment process. So, it involves going to Microsoft Learn. And on Microsoft Learn, we have assessments available for every single certification that's renewal eligible. So, you need to go there and take the assessment and pass the assessment in order to renew your certification. Now, for those of you, and all of you have gone through the exam process to earn a certification, which is to go to either a test center, a physical test center, or take the exam in the comfort of your homes, but you have to schedule it. All of that is not required for renewals. Renewals, we've made it much simpler. So it's just an online assessment that you need to go take on Microsoft Learn. There are learning modules available if you want to actually learn up about the technologies that we're going to test in the renewal process. For that specific assessment, that's again optional. But as long as you complete the assessment before your certification expires, your certification will be extended 1 year from the date that you earned it. So the anniversary date is what we take in order to give you that 1 year extension.
That's great. And how do they get to the learning path if they want to do that? Where is that located at?
So when you go to Microsoft Learn and go to the certification page that you're certified in, there is a link to the renewal page as well. So there is a separate page that has the renewal information, and within that renewal page, all of the learning collection that's relevant for that specific renewal is made available there. So you can go into the renewal page and you can get access to the learning collection that's available for that specific renewal.
Great, thank you. Liberty, does it cost to renew a Microsoft certification?
So I'm going to answer that question in just 1 second, but I do want to correct something that Sudarshan said, because the psychometrician in me makes me do this. But Sudarshan said you just have to take the assessment. You actually have to pass it. And there is a little bit of a difference there. So I just want to make sure that everybody understands you have to pass it. So to the question, does it cost to renew a Microsoft certification? No, it's free. So I say again, it's free. You can renew at no cost by passing the associated renewal assessment on Microsoft Learn. You just need to make sure you do it before your certification expires.
That's great.
This is why we need a psychometrician on the call.
Absolutely. Make sure that we're on track. Yes, yeah. So Sudarshan, going back to you, when am I eligible to take that renewal assessment? I want to make sure we're clear on that.
So the renewal assessment is available to you 6 months prior to your certification expiration. So anytime you're eligible, that is 6 months prior to your certification expiration, you can go take the renewal. and we don't penalize you for taking it early. So you can take it. If you take it early, you basically extend the certification 1 year from the anniversary date. So it is eligible, or it's available 6 months prior to your certification expires.
Got it. I have a couple questions from some of the audience members I'm going to ask you. Why does Microsoft feel it's necessary to renew yearly? The tech isn't going to change that much. And either of you can answer this.
So I'll start, and the Sudarshan can pile on. We have actually seen in some roles that it is changing very rapidly. Data and AI is in a particular place where we're seeing rapid changes that is very difficult to keep up to date if we weren't doing this annually. So while I will fully admit some of the job roles aren't changing quite so fast, enough of them are that we feel that a year cycle makes sense. But we do recognize that a year is really a lot to ask, which is why we've simplified the process as much as we could. You don't have to go to a test center to do this. You can go to learn. You can take it at your own pace, and you can take it as many times as you need to in order to pass it. So we've really tried to make this as simple as possible, because the purpose is to drive your passion for continuously learning and staying up to date in what's important for your job role.
That's great.
Yeah, one
Sudarshan?
thing I'll just add is when we went through this process of renewal, and when we were coming up with the strategy for the program, we did take into account a lot of the data that was available to us, right? Because we do update our exams on a regular basis, and as we look at the technology changes that were happening relevant to a job role, and we did the job task analysis, we did recognize that for majority of the cases, the technology was changing quite rapidly, and 1 year was the time that we came to a conclusion based on the data that we got, right? So the data is really telling us that the technology is evolving at a rapid pace, and a yearly renewal does make sense.
Great, thank you. So I think I have a clarifying question for you. I have someone in the audience has asked, how does the renewal work? Is it a one-time only? Can we repeat? And where do we apply? So I think they're a little confused about that part of it.
Yeah, basically the way the renewal works is it's an annual process. So every year you have to go to Microsoft Learn, take that assessment, pass the assessment, and then you will renew your certification by passing the assessment. So it's an annual cycle, and as long as the certification is in market, that process will be available to you, right? So you will have to do it on an annual basis. And now, once the certification is retired by Microsoft, that's when you no longer have the ability to renew a certification. And then at that point, if there is a new certification that's available in market in its place, then you go through the process of earning the certification all over again. But otherwise, you can sort of continue this process on an ongoing basis every year. So that's how it'll work.
And I want to just clarify too, the learning path that they do each year is going to be different. It's going to change, correct?
Correct. So what we do is we monitor for all of the changes that are happening in the technology space in terms of services being added and services being deprecated to the job role. And it's the Delta content that keeps getting updated every year, right? So in fact, we do it more often than a year, but the requirement is for 1 year cycle, right, in terms of renewal. So the content of the learning paths and the learning collection that we provide does change on a periodic basis, and you will see the changes every year when you go take the learning collection and the assessment.
Great, thank you. I think that's important, so that clarifies things for them. I do have another question from the audience. If I don't renew my certification, how does it affect my role at work?
If you don't renew your certification, it will expire on the date, on the expiration date. Whether that impacts your role at work is really up to your organization. But I would assume if it was valuable for your organization to for you to be certified in the first place, that continuing to maintain and renew your certification over time will only continue to add and demonstrate your not only commitment to ongoing learning, but your value to the organization, because you are keeping up to date with the technology changes and understanding how those changes impact your job role in a way that can make you more productive and effective in it.
That's great. I have a follow-up question too, and I think this will help clarify things for them. Is when can I take the assessment? And I think this is aimed at Liberty. You know, we've said, hey, they have to do it before the certification expires, but can they do it early? You know, when can they start?
So you can really take the assessment as soon as you're eligible to renew your certification. And that is about 6 months prior to your certification expiration date. And I would recommend you start right away, because passing the assessment early doesn't change the expiration date, and it gives you sufficient time to prepare and pass the assessment. So as soon as you get that first email notification saying you're eligible, I would encourage you to go and look at the learning path and maybe even take a stab at the assessment and see how it goes. If you pass it, hey, you're done, and you're actually good for basically 18 months, right? Because it's not going to expire until a year from your expiration date. And you've added that year on, and you did it 6 months early. So it gives you a lot of time if you take advantage of starting right away. And then if you fail, it gives you time to look more closely at the learning path and retake the assessment until you do pass. So you're not in danger of allowing your certification to expire.
That's great. That's great. So I have a couple more questions that came in the chat. First off, how do I tell which certifications I'm eligible to renew?
So the way you can do that is through your certification dashboard. So certification dashboard is your sort of single source of truth for all your certifications that you currently hold, Microsoft certifications that you currently hold. So you can go to your certification dashboard, and as soon as you become eligible, you will see a renew button right next to your certification that's eligible for renewal. So that is one way. You can also go to your Learn profile. If you're connected your certification profile to Learn profile, which is where the assessment is hosted, that's another place where you can get the information about which certifications that you own or that you hold are eligible for renewal. In addition to that, you will also get an email notification from Microsoft the first day that you're eligible. So 6 months prior to your certification expiration, that's when you become eligible. You will receive an email from Microsoft saying you're eligible for renewal for that specific certification that you hold. And you can actually click on the link in that email, which will take you directly to the renewal page from where you can take the renewal assessment. And if you do not take any action, you will continue to get more emails. You will get an email at the 90-day mark, the 30-day mark, and the 7-day mark. But if you do take action, then those emails will stop. So that's how you will get to know that you're eligible to renew.
Great.
Email and your certification dashboard.
Great. And is there a list of all the certifications that need to be, that are eligible for renewal? I know we've done a blog on that, on our tech community blog. Is there a list on Learn as well?
Well, there is. It's aka.ms/cert renewal. But the short answer is it an associate, specialty, or expert certification? If so, it will be eligible for cert renewal. And about around 6 months before the first certification will start to expire is when you will see the certification renewal become available on Microsoft Learn. So really, I don't even know if we need a list, because if it's an associate, specialty, or expert, it will be cert renewal eligible unless we have a planned retirement for it. And then that's a little bit different. But if it's an active certification with no planned retirement and it's a specialty, expert, or associate, it will have cert renewal within 6 months of the very first cert that will expire.
Great. Thanks for clarifying.
One quick addition to what Liberty said is if it's a new certification, then the certification renewal for that specific certification will become available after 6 months. So you might not see it right away. You will see it after 6 months after launch.
Great. Great. Thanks for clarifying. So I do have a question about the exam itself. How many questions are in the renewal? Is it the same for the exam that you go sit at for the actual certification?
So first, I want to not call this an exam because it's so different from our traditional exams. Let's call it an assessment. So when we're talking about cert renewal, let's think of it more like an assessment versus an exam. And it is very different in terms of the experience and to some extent the content, because the item types are a little bit we don't have as many we don't use as many item types in the assessment. So the number of questions you will typically see is somewhere between 25 and 30. We will have 45 minutes. we're telling people to plan for about 45 minutes to take the assessment. I suspect many people do it much more quickly. And so I think those are the big differences to keep in mind between the assessment versus the exam. So our exams typically are 50 to 60 questions. They tend to have a lot more item types. They'll have things like case studies and things like that. You will see a simpler approach to the item types on the assessment. There's a fewer different types, and it's going to take you about 45 minutes, probably less, versus our exams, which are closer to 100 minutes or 120 if those exams have labs.
Great, Liberty. I think that really clarifies things. I have a couple questions coming in, and I know we've addressed the free, but I want to just have you guys go over it because I've had a couple people are asking what happens if they pass the first and they have to renew again. They don't pass it the first time. Does it cost money to retake it? So I want to make sure we're clear on that. It's free.
It's free.
Yeah, it's free. If you don't pass the assessment the first time, you can go back and take it again for free right away. But after the second attempt, then you have a 24-hour cool-off period, but it's still free, right? I mean, we're not charging for any of the retake attempts or the assessments at all.
Great. And along these lines, let's continue with this. What happens if they fail it? How many times can they retake it?
They can take it as many times as they need to pass the assessment, as long as the certification hasn't expired. So that is why it's really important what Liberty said in the beginning, right? Or in one of the earlier questions, that you start your renewal process right at the 6-month mark. When you get that email, the first email 6 months prior to your certification expiration, you go take the first assessment. And if you fail, you can continue to keep taking it. Going by the retake policy that I mentioned, 24-hour cool-off period after the second attempt, and you can take it as many times as you'd like. But you have to make sure that you complete the assessment and pass the assessment. Sorry, not complete, pass the assessment before your certification expires. So that's the only condition. So there's no restriction on the number of times you can retake the assessment. And
each time it's free, correct?
Each time it's free. Yes.
Great.
Can you be more compelling than that, right?
Exactly. So I have a great question here. A person has about 10 certifications. Does that mean she has to take 10 renewals or just the highest ones?
For any cert that you want to renew, you do have to go through the renewal process. So it's really up to that particular learner to say whether they want to continue renewing all of their certifications, but they do have to do it for each cert that they want to renew. I will say, so I did worry about this a little bit with the year cadence about some of our candidates do have quite a number of certifications, but again, the process is simple. And so it will be a little work. Don't get me wrong. It's going to be some work because that's a lot of certifications to renew, but I don't think it's impossible. I think what I would say is just plan your strategy according to the expiration dates. Start with the one that's the one that will expire the soonest and start working on your cert renewal as soon as you get your invitation that you're eligible. And maybe even just go right into the assessment and see if you have had enough experience over the last year and you're staying up to date on your own course without having to go through the learning path and see if you can pass. That would be my strategy. Certainly you should do what works best, but I think that we've simplified the process enough that it's not impossible, even if you have a large number of certifications that are going to expire around the same time.
Great. I think that's a great strategy, Liberty. I have another interesting question. What will happen what would happen if I miss my renewal? Do I have to complete the certification again?
Yes, if you miss your renewal and your certification expires, then you have to go through the process all over again and earn the certification, which is to take an exam, pass the exam, and then earn the certification. And in some cases, there could be multiple exams leading to a cert. So all of those requirements need to be met again if you don't renew. The beauty of renewal is even if there are multiple exams leading to a cert, in order to earn a cert, there's only one renewal that you need to take. You don't need to take, like, if there are 2 exams to earn a cert, you don't need to take 2 renewals to renew, right? There's 2 assessments to renew. So you just need to take one. So again, we have tried to make it simple, but if you miss the renewal process, then it's all over again. You'll have to earn the cert.
Got it. So important to make sure you get that completed before that expires. Yeah. Okay, Liberty, this one's for you. Can you talk a little bit about the difference between the exam the first time and the assessment, like the difficulty, the complexity? I'm thinking, they're thinking like, is the assessment really going to be as hard as that exam that first time?
So that's a difficult question for me to answer, because people will experience these differently. What I will say is that what we have tried to do with the assessment is to make sure that they're measuring the skills at the right level. So in some sense, they could be equally difficult to what is on the exam. The difference is that we are not using some of the complex item types. Case studies, I think people really find difficult and challenging on the exam. And to some extent, that's by design, because a case study really lays out the situation that you're in and all of the requirements, and it requires you to consolidate knowledge across different pieces of information in order to solve the problem. With the assessments, we don't have case studies, but we still could have complicated questions that require you to integrate knowledge across multiple different areas of your job role in order to be able to answer it. I think two things that I'll highlight is that the exams are high stakes, which means you have identity verification, you have proctoring, and they are timed, versus our assessments, which we've authenticated you through Microsoft Learn, so we're trusting it's you who say you are. They're unproctored, and while we say that, and there is some time, there's more than enough time for you to be able to complete it. Plus, it is kind of essentially open book, right? So you can go, and if you can't remember quite what the answer is, you do have time in your assessment experience to potentially look up the answer. So a lot of the stuff there has removed, I think, some of the anxiety producing elements of a high stakes exam, which can create the perception of difficulty. So I would say the questions in and of themselves should be at the same level of rigor and that ability to measure the right skills at that right level. But the experience itself has probably created something that should feel less challenging, if I can use that word.
Yeah, I think it's really important what Liberty mentioned, right? I think there was some misconceptions about the renewal assessment being proctored and having to go to a test center and all that. So we have tried to make the experience a little bit more delightful and less anxious. So it is actually a pretty compelling experience, and all of you should experience it at least once. We encourage all of you to take the renewal assessment and renew your certification that way. But if you decide to go through the experience, you will see that it's pretty compelling, right? It's not stressful, anxious. You will not feel any anxiety. You shouldn't feel any anxiety, because we've tried to make it delightful for you.
Great. I have probably time for one last question, and I think it's we're just looking for some clarity around the expert level. So if someone has an expert level certification, they've taken multiple exams to get there, do they have to also renew that associate level first? How does all that work?
So for the expert level certification, you only need to take the assessment that is associated with that expert level exam, right? So expert level certification. So there's only one renewal assessment that you need to take in order to keep your expert level certification active. However, if you decide to also keep your associate level certification active, that's when you have to go take the associate level assessment and pass the assessment and renew your associate as well. So if you want to just keep your expert level active, there's no requirement to keep your associate level active as well. And you don't need to pass the assessment for the associate level.
Great. Thank you. I think that's about all the time we have today. We've had some really great questions. Appreciate everyone sending all these wonderful questions, and we hope we gave you some clarity around this. So just wanted to say thank you for joining us, and head to the link below and make sure that your certification is renewed before it expires. Again, we have an AKA link for you, AKA Renew Your Certification. And, hopefully you all can get all your certifications renewed and stay current. So thank you again for joining us, and we look forward to talking to you again.
Thank you.
Thanks, everybody.
Bye.